Easy to get swept up in the hype surrounding young talent, especially when those talents find themselves joining some of the biggest clubs in the world. However, for many of these players, the reality of moving to a top club too early can have unintended consequences. Today, we're focusing on 7 youngsters who made big moves to major clubs and in some cases found themselves in over their heads. Let's start with Endrick, the Brazilian wonder kid who was snatched up by Real Madrid at the age of just 16. The weight of expectation that came with such a move was astronomical. Hailing from Palmeiras, he was immediately touted as the next big thing in Brazilian football, with comparisons to the like of Pelé and Ronaldo. But moving to a club like Real Madrid at such a young age is no small task. As a teenager, Endrick was thrust into a dressing room filled with some of the world's best players. The intensity and pressure was palpable, and while he is undoubtedly gifted, he seems far from ready to take on the challenge of the Bernabeu. No surprise then that Madrid were already looking for clubs to loan him out to last year, and it might still happen. Next up is Dominic Solanke. After impressing at Chelsea's youth ranks, he found himself making a big money move to Liverpool in 2017. Despite his promise, he struggled to break into the first team at Anfield. While he did get opportunities, especially in the cup competitions, the presence of established stars like Mo Salah, Sadio Mane and Roberto Firmino made it hard for him to carve out a regular spot. A loan move to Bournemouth in 2019 seemed to be the turning point in his career, where he finally started to show the kind of form that many had expected from him earlier. The Reds decided to let him go to the Cherries for good, and he's shined ever since. He earned another big money move to Spurs and now seems ready for the challenge. Now let's talk about Fabio Carvalho. He made a big move to Liverpool in 2022 after impressing in the Championship, but his transition to the Premier League wasn't as seamless as many had hoped. While he certainly had the technical ability and flair that made him stand out in the second division, breaking into a Liverpool midfield that was stacked with talent was always going to be a tall order. His development seemed stunted as he found himself on the fringes of the squad. His loan spell at RB Leipzig didn't help matters as he registered no goal or assist in 15 games for them. Now at Brentford, he's hoping for better times ahead. Jed Spence is another player whose move to a big club came with complications. After impressing at Nottingham Forest and Middlesbrough, he was snapped up by Tottenham Hotspur in 2022 with high hopes. However, under Antonio Conte, he found himself sidelined, labelled as a club signing rather than the manager's choice. His opportunities were limited, and after a disappointing season with just 4 Premier League appearances, Spence was sent out on loan to Rennes and then later to Leeds United, where injuries also hampered his progress. Despite showing flashes of brilliance in the Championship with Forest, the jump to Spurs was too much too soon for the young fullback. Now under Postecoglou, he seems to have gotten a proper chance, so let's see how far he goes. Moving to La Liga, we have Ousmane Dembele, who joined Barcelona in 2017 for an astronomical fee at just 20 years old. The club were hoping that they'd found a worthy successor to Neymar, who had left for PSG, and the weight of those expectations surely took a toll on the Frenchman. He struggled to find consistency during his time at the Camp Nou. His undeniable talent was overshadowed by a constant injury issue. His struggles at Barca weren't just about his fitness, his attitude also came under close scrutiny. Reports surfaced about his unprofessional behaviour, including poor diet choices and a lack of discipline in training. Everything you'd expect of a player who was barely an adult when he was signed. It's a shame he was never able to turn it around, and eventually he moved to PSG in 2023. Takefusa Kubo is yet another player whose early move to a big club proved to be a double-edged sword. After a promising stint at Barcelona's youth academy, he made the move to Real Madrid at the age of 18, but struggled to secure a spot in Madrid's first team. With such stiff competition, he found himself sent out on loan to various La Liga clubs, including Mallorca and Real Sociedad. It's clear that Kubo had potential as seen from his loan spells, but his time at Madrid simply wasn't the right environment for him to grow. Now at Sociedad permanently, he seems to slowly be turning into the player Madrid expected him to become. Lastly, Ethan Mbappe, the younger brother of Kylian, was seen as a rising star at PSG, but despite making a few senior appearances, he struggled to live up to the pressure of being compared to his world-renowned sibling. His contract wasn't renewed, and he eventually made the move to Lille, where he hopes to build his career away from his brother's shadow. These 7 players all moved to massive clubs early on in their careers, but the reality of such high-profile transfers proved to be a challenge.